Hey everyone, welcome to Setting Up Encryption Keys on your Mac. This is going to be a series of short video tutorials walking you through the steps of setting up encryption keys on a Macintosh computer, on an Apple computer. We'll throughout this series, in addition to sort of demoing the actual steps, I'll sprinkle in some information about what encryption is and why you might want to use it and all of that other stuff. But basically, we're going to just focus on getting started. You will, if you have any experience that's different from what you see in the video here, I'm working on an older Mac, and so some things might be different in your operating system. If that's the case, feel free to post a comment, particularly with a timestamp, and leave a note as to how your experience differed from what you saw here. It's really helpful to others, frankly. So anyone who also encounters your situation, and I will do my best to either answer any questions you have myself, or point you to useful resources that can sort of help address those needs. So before we get started, just a quick bit on terminology. If you've heard about encryption keys, you may have also heard the terms PGP or GPG or computer scientists love our acronyms. So everybody loves acronyms, actually, lawmakers, yeah. PGP stands for Pretty Good Privacy. Pretty Good Privacy was created by a guy named Phil Zimmerman, and it is the widely accepted standard in encryption of content, and it's pretty much what everyone uses when they encrypt the contents of their emails. And of course, you can also encrypt files that never leave your computer if you want to make sure that something is protected. Maybe you use a shared computer and you have files that you'd like to store there that you don't want other people to have access to. You can definitely use encryption to do that. So that's PGP. GPG stands for GNU Privacy Guard. And is the free and open source version of PGP. And so they're often used interchangeably. They are effectively interchangeable. We will obviously be using GNU Privacy Guard because it's free and open source, which is wonderful. So you may also notice that I'm in a slightly atypical, or what may be a typical search engine. This is DuckDuckGo. It is a non-tracking search engine, which is just a handy thing to know about. So I'm going to go ahead and check this out, and I'll end up right at the site of GNU Privacy Guard. In this wall of text, the thing that you are interested in is this link, which is to GPG Tools. GPG Tools is a nice package of tools for Macs that also, in addition to helping you generate keys, also help smooth the way to doing things like encrypting email, actually sending encrypted emails. And so here we are. I'm going to download GPG Suite. You can see it works all the way back to Snow Leopard. I think I started to say before that there's kind of two sides to encryption keys. We call them encryption keys. Yes, that's what they are, but basically there's sort of two sets of things that you can do with them. One, there's two sets of things that they do. Essentially, what a key does is it establishes for you an essentially unforgeable digital identity. Okay, so if you're somebody who uses social media, if you've ever had the unfortunate experience of having an account hacked, then you can probably see why this is useful. It's a way, even if you never encrypt an email that you send ever, these tools give you a way to definitively sign an email, basically. So sometimes you see PGP signature. And sometimes if you've ever gotten an email like that, you'll see it says like PGP signed email, and then at the bottom it has a big jumble of what looks like junk. But basically, actually, the signature is a way that other people can verify that the email that they got came from the person that it was signed with this key that belongs to you. And so, if you do get an account hacked, especially as this happens in high-profile cases of social media, if you still own that key and the key tends to live on your physical computer, if somebody's done that remotely, you can very quickly and reliably prove that, you are that whoever's running that account is not you, because they won't be able to sign emails or correspond any other communications with your key. So just to sort of lay out that there are a couple of things, there's a couple of things that you're able to do with this stuff that is not that doesn't have anything to do with encrypting email, or doesn't necessarily have to do with encrypting email. So again, just gonna normal thing here, gonna double click the package, double click install, going all with the standards here. And you will, of course, need administrator access to be able to do this. I think another thing, the other question sort of is like, why would we worry about encrypting emails? And there are some cases where most of us, very fortunately, are not the subject of of government interest in the way that we've read about in the news a whole lot in the last year or so. However, there are actually a lot of cases where other entities, sometimes lawyers, other different kinds of agencies, can actually go to can use legal means to go to your email provider and ask for the contents of your email. And that's something that probably most of us are not interested in. Don't really want to, we want to know if somebody's reading our email, basically. And so what the kind of encryption that we're doing here, basically what it means is that if somebody wants to get access to the contents of your email, whether it says meet me at 5 o'clock, on the corner, or, is a desperate confession of love for somebody that maybe you don't want the whole world knowing, that both of those things, can only be read by yourself and the recipient. And in order to get access to it, anyone who wants to get those emails is going to have to come to you. So, it's really about kind of increasing your control over your information flow, and it's not about being, the subject of some sort of government conspiracy. Okay, so we are in the first steps. If for some reason, a couple of times when I've done this dialog has not popped up for me automatically, if it doesn't pop up for you automatically, just go to your little spotlight icon and start typing in GPG, and the first thing that will pop up will say GPG keychain access. Click on that, it will bring you to this, and you would have to click on this new button in order to get this thing to pop up. Anyhow, so now we're into the actual key generation thing, and it's pretty simple. Basically what I have to do is choose a username and give it an email address that you'll associate with that username, and that will smooth the way later on to actually encrypting, sending and receiving encrypted emails. So I am going to do just that. Okay, now I'm just going to show you the advanced. So I am not going to upload my public key after generation, and we can sort of talk. I'll sort of talk about why this is the case. But basically, if you upload your key, you're kind of stuck with everything. This way, if you want to, you can sort of decide what you want to make public. Basically, the key, every encryption key in this system, in the PGP style system, has two parts. It has the part that you put out to the world, called the public key, and basically what that does is it lets people put messages to you in a little box that only you can open, and the other half is the private key, which can actually like unlock that box, right? So that's very often the analogy that's used. It's a little bit, it's not quite like that, because actually the private key can also unlock the public key, but basically you can think of it as like a lock and a key fitting together, right? So basically the public key is a box, lets people put things in a digital box that only you can open. The private key is the key used to open it, and if you put them together, in any case, you can test to see whether they fit together. So your private key can also be used to prove that that a public key belongs to you. Okay, enough about that. Anyhow, I'm going to wait to share this public key in another way. But just to sort of touch on the advanced options here, you don't need to change any of this stuff. It's just to highlight that it's here. Key type, this is, so RSA, it's talking about the algorithm, basically how the computer is generating the encryption, right? there's been a lot in the news about different algorithms, et cetera. But again, keeping in mind here that, your concern is basically that, your email provider or some lawyer is not getting access to your emails, is not able to read your emails. Like, that's totally fine. And as is 2048, so this is essentially how complicated the key is. Bigger number, more complex. 2048 is fine. And then there's an expiration date, so you can say this is good until whenever. And you can do what you will with this. Most of the time it's a little like a phone number, I guess. I mean, a lot of us keep phone numbers for a really long time, but it's your digital identity, and so you might want to make it last for 10 years. You might want to make it last for 20 years. You might want to say, I'm only going to keep this for a year. So obviously, it depends on your needs. And now, basically, you just click a button. And so what this is saying is, okay, I need to generate a lot of random bytes. So one thing that computers cannot do is actually be random. And that's actually a really key factor in all of this is randomness. So actually, when you read stuff about, oh, is this algorithm compromised, it basically has to do with flaws in how random it actually is. So one of the reasons why you see this about typing and moving your mouse is that humans can be random, computers cannot be, and so you are contributing some human randomness to this computer task. Now, passphrase. Passphrase is like a password, but longer. And this is an important point, which is that, how do you come up with a good passphrase? I recommend that you use a sentence. I think an inside joke between you and your best friend is a great passphrase. And it's a great passphrase because it's going to be really easy for you to remember. It's going to be very unlikely as long that somebody else would guess it. Because again, what you want to make sure is that whatever you use is not something that's really associated with you online, right? So, if you have your favorite line from The Simpsons, or it's a very popular favorite line, if you have your favorite line from The Simpsons on your Facebook profile, not a good passphrase. If there's some obscure B-side song that you love, and there's a phrase from that could actually be pretty good. But again, the trick is that it needs to be memorable, and most importantly, it needs to be long. You can write this down. That is fine. Leave it in your desk drawer. Again, the people you're worried about here generally are the folks who are probably the folks outside your life who want to get access to your email kind of remotely, right? So by going to your email provider or something, which means that they're not in your home. If you need to protect stuff from people in your home, then you can still write it down, but you want to store it somewhere else. But basically, for most of us, writing it down on a piece of paper is just fine. And it's important because if you lose that passphrase, there's no password recovery, right? That's part of the security is that, if you don't have that passphrase, you can't get access to that stuff. So it's just, you're better off doing something like that, just like writing it down. Don't store it on your computer either. It should be non-digital. Put it on a piece of paper and do it that way. So now it's my turn to generate a key to put in a passphrase. So I'm going to do that, and it's going to ask, right? Okay, so, 12, 15 characters is good, mix of upper and lowercase. Actually, that will give you a prompt and say, by the way, it needs to have a letter, and a number, or a punctuation mark in it. That's actually not that important. It's not as important as how long it is and how memorable it is. So that's basically it. We have generated some keys here. So the next step, of course, is what to do with these keys. And coming back in the next session, we'll talk about how we can actually use this to encrypt an email and to sign an email so that people know that it really came from us. All right, see you in a few.